Hi, sixth graders. Today we're going to review some of our geometry skills. Find a space where you can write down some examples and take any notes that you feel would benefit you. Let's start with finding area of this polygon. What shape is this? It's a triangle. So we're going to find area of a triangle. How do we find area of a triangle? What is our formula? Use your formula sheets. To find area of a triangle, we take base times height and divide by 2. Remember that base and height on figures with slanted lines, we're going to look for our two lines that make the 90 degrees. Can you spot the two lines that make the 90-degree angle? 5 and 3. So those are my base and height. We're going to plug those in. Multiply and then divide by 2. Try that now on your calculator. Let's see if we get the same thing. 5 times 3 is 15, divided by 2, 7.5 feet squared, because we're working with surface area. Let's move on to a composite figure. In a composite figure, they're kind of these strange shapes that we're not able to find area of all at once. We need to draw some lines to split this figure up to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. We can do this a few ways. I could draw a vertical line like this to create a rectangle and a trapezoid. Or I could draw a horizontal line like this to create a rectangle up top and a trapezoid below. Either choice is going to require you to do a little bit of thinking to find some of your missing measurements. I'm kind of feeling the vertical line from earlier. Let's do that one. If I do the vertical line, my rectangle over here for me is going to be easier to find area of, because area of a rectangle is just base times height. So I'm looking at my two sides. This side length is 5, this side length is 10. So I'm going to multiply those together to get 50 inches squared for the rectangle. My trapezoid is the one that a lot of us were getting stuck on when I passed out the study guide. The trapezoid is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times the height. So we need to figure out what those three values are so we can plug them in. My bases are my lines that run parallel, 7 and 15. So let's plug those in for the bases. 7 plus 15 divided by 2. Now let's find the height. Height is how far apart those two parallel lines are. So I see this straight line right here. I have to figure out what that is. Well, look over here. We know the whole side length is 10, and this top part over here is 6. So what must the bottom part be to get all the way up to 10? It must be 4, because 6 plus 4 equals 10, the other side's length. Let's plug this into our calculator. 7 plus 15 is 22. 22 divided by 2 is 11. And 11 times 4 gives us our area of 44 for the trapezoid. Now that I have the trapezoid's area and the rectangle's area, I add them together to get our total area for the composite figure, which is 94 inches squared. Those were some refreshers on area. Next, let's move into surface area and volume. Surface area, remember, is when our coloring is going to really come in handy. We need to find area of all the different rectangles on this prism and then add them together. Let's start. I'm just going to start with this bottom rectangle. What are the dimensions of that bottom rectangle? 10 and 7. So to find the area, we're going to take 10 times 7. That gives us 70. We have the same rectangle up top. Remember, it has a twin on the other side. So we're going to take our 70 times it by 2 to represent both of those rectangles, which gives us 140. Let me grab another color. Let's look for another rectangle on our figure. We have the sides. This side has dimensions of 7, and this vertical line is the same as this line, 3. 7 times 3, which gives us an area for that side of 21. We have the same figure across from it with the same dimensions. So that means we have 2 rectangles with an area of 21. So we're going to double it, which gives us 42. We have one last side, the front and the back, one last set of sides, I should say, this front piece and the back piece at the back. What are the dimensions of those rectangles? 3 and 10. I multiply those together to get 30. I have 2 of those rectangles with an area of 30, so I double that to get 60. Now, how do we find the surface area? We add those together. 140 plus 42 plus 60 gives us 242 inches squared. Volume, there's surface area. Do you remember the formula for volume? We just talked about it. Length times width times height. 10 times 7 times 3. That is volume. Find that now on your calculator. Remember, units are units cubed. I'm getting 210 inches cubed. Let's go through one more type, which is our triangular prism. Finding volume and surface area. Surface area, we're finding the area of all the different pieces and adding them together. This one does not have as much doubling that gets to happen. Your bases are your triangles. To find area of a triangle, we take its base times its height and divide by 2. 8 times 6 is 48, divided by 2 is 24. But this is one where I have the same exact triangle on the other side because it's a base, so we have the same one on the other side. So we have 2 24s. We're going to double it to represent both triangles, which takes us right back to 48. Now I have 3 rectangles, all with different dimensions. The bottom rectangle is an 8 by 5. I multiply those together to get 40. My back rectangle, if this were a skateboard ramp, it's kind of holding up the ramp. What dimensions does that have? 6 and 5. I multiply those together to get 30. And I have one last rectangle, the slanted piece on top where the skateboard would go right here. What dimensions does that rectangle have? 5 by 10. That's all 5 sides of this triangular prism. Now I add those together to get its surface area. My total is 168 centimeters squared. How is finding volume on this prism different from the last prism? We still do length times width times height, but we have to divide by 2. Let's figure out which 3 numbers we're going to use. I'm going to circle them in blue. We're going to use the 2 numbers that make up the 90-degree angle on the triangle, the base and the height. Then we're going to use the number that connects the 2 triangles, my 5. So I'm going to take 6 times 8 times 5 and divide by 2 to get our volume for this prism. I'm getting 120 centimeters cubed. All right, you guys, go to work on your study guide. Check in with your teacher if you have any questions.